Labour and government have agreed to work together on a number of initiatives to combat the sky-high unemployment and lift growth. Now, for more on the summit, we cross back live to our business reporter, Nompumelo Siziba, who is in Midrand. Nompu, what's the latest?
Thanks very much, Blaine. Yes, well, as you know, it's the second day of the Job Summit. It's the final day as well. But this is just the beginning. It's a continuum. It's the beginning of a continuum of discussions around how to resolve the issues of South Africa's high unemployment problems. A lot of agreements have been agreed upon. We're going to see a formal signing a little bit later on. And of course, there are a number of constituents. There's business, labour, government and civil society. And I've got a head of business here that's Tanya Cohen. She's the CEO of BUSA, that is Business Unity South Africa. Thanks very much for joining us, Tanya. You've been very vocal in the media about how impactful you think that the Job Summit is going to be. You've talked about how much work has been done in the lead up. Just tell the viewers what your views are on it.
So we think we've got a really good package of agreements together that speak to a variety of different challenges in the labour market, in the economy, and which have the ability to leverage and upscale the opportunities for employment, particularly amongst young people. The initiatives that we see are at a sector level from an economic sector perspective. Some of them are around skills and education in terms of how do you take young people who are coming out of TVET colleges, for example, and give them pathways into employment. There's proposals in terms of how to leverage enterprises in a way that generates employment, inclusive growth and transformation type of agreements, and also agreements around corruption and how the social partners work together to fight that. But I think one of the big differentiators of this summit, if one compares it to different and other processes, is that what we're starting with now is a list of actions that we've committed to. In previous summits, I think what's happened is that you start with aspirations and then you say you're going to be working towards it. Whereas now we already know what the agreements are. We already have those actions that have been embedded, and there's a very strong commitment that we put it together with a monitoring and evaluation framework where we will make sure that we deliver on what we've set out to achieve.
Just touching on what you were talking about TVET colleges, I see there's a commitment for businesses to partner up with TVET colleges in order to make the students more employment ready. Do we know how soon those initiatives are going to take place?
Well, some of them are already in place. So if one looks at the pathways to employment that's being conducted under the Harambee Employment Accelerator, that's already funded and it's already starting to get traction, and that potentially can create pathways for 500,000 young people across the economy, across geographical areas into employment. There's also a process that's around partnering in terms of the tourism industry and seeing how you can take TVET college graduates and partner them with tour guides, help them with foreign language skills, and they immediately will get access into employment. Similarly, there's a similar project on manufacturing. There's one that focuses on the installation, repair and maintenance industries. So these are actually tangible and actually will open up very, very quickly. Some of them have already opened up.
So one of the things the President mentioned was that moratorium on retrenchments across businesses. How many businesses have committed to this? And in the current economic climate, how is it going to be possible?
So there was no mention of a moratorium. The commitment that is in the framework agreements is that businesses will do whatever they can not to retrench in the current climate, because we really do recognize that we can't be affording to lose jobs at the current point of time. I think what we also realize, however, though, is that if you stop a business from retrenching when they actually have to do so, is that what you might do is affect many more employees and the business viability for the long term, which you don't want to do. So businesses have to be able to have that mechanism, but what we've all committed to is that we try and avoid the retrenchment where we can. We try and look for other options. We try and look at skilling in terms of a transition into other employment or into other employment external to the business, and that we really actively explore those commitments. I think there was certainly a commitment to a moratorium in the public sector. There's a different kind of commitment, but nevertheless a commitment in the private sector.
And then just break down to us, Tanya, the commitment that was made by business people. I don't know if it applies to the public and the private sector, that they would not accept salary increases. How soon is that going to happen, and for what duration of time, and how many businesses committed to that?
So that's also part of the package of things that businesses must consider before retrenching, in terms of how do you potentially save jobs by cutting out some of the cost factors. So that's part of the package of interventions that that essentially have been agreed to. I think where you are seeing tangible businesses signing up is that there's a Proudly South Africa initiative in terms of signing up businesses to commit to local procurement interventions. It's at a business-specific level, which we think is a very positive development, because each business can do different things in a different way, which is depending on what products they're utilizing and depending on the context, depending on the size of the business. So there's a definite commitment there, and there's an agreement between the DTI and business that over the next year 500 companies across the country will be approached and actively engaged to look at procurement opportunities for local procurement in order to boost local procurement, and that will also come into the Proudly South Africa work that's been done. So that's a really exciting commitment. And then if we look to other areas where we're actually looking for signatures and sign-up, is that there has been a commitment to the anti-corruption pledge. That was a pledge that resonates very closely with the pledge that BUSA and BLSA and many of our members have signed towards the end of last year and beginning of this year, to do everything possible to deal with corruption, to make sure that there are consequences where it's found, to take a zero-tolerance approach to corruption. One of the issues that was referred to in that regard in the agreement is an endorsement of government's intention to do lifestyle audits, which we think is very important as well.
Absolutely. And Tanya, how soon are we going to see the monitoring body established, and when can we expect it to start the job of monitoring the progress? And where does the number 275,000 jobs additional to the jobs that would be created on an annual basis come from?
So in terms of the monitoring and evaluation, I've just been in discussion actually with a colleague from the presidency, is that we're really targeting that mechanism is in place within the next 30 days, and that obviously it meets on a regular basis and convenes under the auspices of the president. And then in terms of your next question, which I've lost the thought.
The 275,000 jobs, yeah.
So the 275,000 jobs are a conservative calculation of jobs based on the projects that have been committed to and agreed. We think the potential is more than that, but we don't want to do what we've done in previous processes as social partners, where we have huge commitments and expectations aren't realized. I think we have to recognize that we're in a job shedding phase. We've got an economy that isn't growing, and that there's a lot of hard work that needs to be done. So rather than overpromise and underdeliver, we want to get traction on the projects that have been agreed. We want to demonstrate what's possible and move from there.
All right, Tanya, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. That was the CEO of Business Unity South Africa, Tanya Cohen, just giving us her impressions and her inputs on what's happening at the Job Summit. She's obviously quite optimistic, saying that a lot of work has been done. She's been one of the instrumental people in this process. And of course, as the day rolls on, we'll have some more interviews for you. Blaine?
Nompumelo Siziba, live for us in Midrand, Gauteng. We thank you very much indeed.